I first met Carlos, he was a skinny kid from Mexico. He was wild and he was raw.
When he left home, there were a lot of times where we would not know where he was. And mostly, we would hear rumors.
Santana as a group was no hippie love thing. This was like a street gang. But the weapon was music.
Our music was like an elephant on a trike. It was animalistic and sexual.
Turn your back on me, baby. Turn your back on me, baby. Yes.
We wanted to be the biggest internationally known band, and that ended up happening.
Don't turn your back on me, baby. You just might bring up my magic sticks.
I always say they went to cocaine heaven. They were just a little too high, and everybody was coming off of non-existent walls.
Carlos developed as a guitarist, as a musician, as a star, but as a human being, he's gone through an enormous change.
So I was living a life of like, I need something different. I was really at war with myself because I wasn't ready to do the inner work to be liberated from my own demons. It takes time to go from charcoal to a diamond. A lot of guys play a lot of notes, but they don't know how to carry a melody. I'm always interested in how can you carry a melody. Learn to feel your heart, feel it, and then learn to carry a melody.
You alone and I am free.
Love of My Life was part of the Supernatural album that revived Santana's career in 1999. The song was in praise of his late father.
I was totally with my father, Jose Santana, because when he passed, for 2 weeks, I made it a point not to play any music in the car or in my head, nothing. I just wanted to just digest that my father left. And I heard a voice that says, okay, it's been 2 weeks, turn on the radio. But turn on the radio? I never turn on the radio. Turn on the radio. And I was on the way to pick up my son from school. I turn on the radio and I go, do-do-do-dee-do-do, which is, an incredible theme. And so I go to Tower Records and it's like, hey man, what is the name of this song? Da-da-da. And the guy goes, oh, I say, let me concur with my colleague. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, concur with your colleague. Okay, would you sing it to him? Da-da-da-dee-do. Oh, that's definitely, Brahms, right? So I keep playing the song and in my head, and I already had lyrics. And I get together with Dave Matthews and I says, Dave, I have this song that, I hear it kind of like with your voice, but it's the melody goes like this.
Carlos Santana was born in July 1947 to a family of musicians in the Mexican state of Jalisco.
My mother, Josefina, was born in Autlan, Jalisco. My father was born in El Grullo. We, the children, were born in Autlan, Jalisco. And so my father infected me with the virus of music, and especially because I saw his eyes when I was 5 years old very clearly, and I saw how the people were looking at him. right there and then, I knew that that's all I ever wanted to do and be adored the way people adore my father in this little town.
When he was only 8 years old, the Santana family followed their father to the Mexican border town of Tijuana.
That's when everything just changed in my life. Hearing the sound of electric guitars in the park bouncing against trees and cars and the church in the sky, for me it was like watching a flying saucer for the first time.
It woke me up to a whole other arena of being jolted. You know, in those days, they used to have people walk around the streets with kind of like those iron things that you touch them and then they put electricity for 10 cents. They give you a jolt. That's what I felt the first time I heard electric guitar sound in the park. Fortunately for me, it was Javier Batis who was already into three things: B.B. King, Little Richard, and Ray Charles. That was his thing, only.
When you go like that, you go. Carlos came with his mother here to my house, and his mama asked me, "Can you teach my little boy to play the guitar like you?" Because they had seen me in the park where I was playing. And Carlos really loved the way I played, and the guitar sounded strange. I said, "Carlos, do you play another instrument?" And he says, "I play the violin." And he got his violin, he went, ta 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 ta. It was so cute. He was a little kid, 11 years old probably, and I was 14.
I had enough knowledge about music because of the violin and teaching me Chardas de Monte and Minuet and G. I mean, my father basically taught me on the violin European music. Fascination. And if you can go, hold that note going back and forth with the bow, making it sound like, instead of going, go, you're pretty mean. You know what I mean? That's feedback. It's like plugging in and making the speakers and the whole thing sustain. So I already knew how to sustain.
His mama brought him over the next day. He said, "Javier, Carlos didn't sleep last night. He just was studying. And what I have taught Carlos, he brought about, I taught him one movement, and but the day after that, he brought about 10 movements, different movements." And I went, wow, because he was so hungry of learning how to play the guitar, like the blues guitar.
Despite being wedded to the blues, Carlos had to continue playing in his father's mariachi band to help feed the family.
And I was playing right next to him. And we were playing in the worst parts of Tijuana. Everything smelled like, kind of smelled like Bourbon Street. It smelled like piss and puke. Being a kid, I'd rather go, you know, play hide and seek or do something the kids do. But instead I was in this place, there's no floor, it's just dirt. The tables are covered with blackness because they don't even have ashtrays. Playing this music that is, to me, to this day, I don't really relate to it. I don't like any music, any kind of music, that deals with lyrics about being drunk and being betrayed. In other words, I don't like music that makes people validate feeling sorry for yourself, crying in your beer, if you will. I like the blues, but I don't like the victim hymns. I like victory hymns. So I told my father specifically, I don't want to be here and play this kind of music. And he says, well, what do you want to do? You want to play that Pachuco rock and roll crap music? I says, well, how can that music be worse than where I am? It was the first time I believe I stood up to my dad. So he said, okay, pack up your violin. You're just like your mother. You always have to have the last word. Get out of here. So I said, hey, whoosh.
Carlos abandoned the mariachi bars for the brighter lights of Tijuana's Revolution Street.
I enjoyed the Revolution Street because in that I was hearing Georgia on my mind, Green Onions. I was hearing all kinds of variety of African American music. My balance was to play from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning at this strip joints for an hour, and then an hour the ladies strip and they do what they do. And then it's Sunday morning, I go to church and play Ave Maria and the violin.
So I got my education really, really quick about spiritual and sensual being as one.
But Santana was still only 13 years old. He was vulnerable to the predatory dangers of Tijuana's nightlife.
I was molested when I was a child by this person who seduced a child by giving him cowboy boots and guns and a bunch of toys when I was living in the ghetto in Tijuana. And my mom couldn't figure it out. And it lasted about maybe a year and a half. I was angry at my parents for not protecting me, even though they did their best. Why did I have to be introduced to anything in that form? You need to go to the mirror if you've been molested or raped, woman or man or child, and say to yourself in the mirror, I am not what happened to me. I am still pristine with purity and innocence, and I forgive the man. Instead of carrying him with me the rest of my life like a cadaver and stinking up the place and being angry and unforgiving, I'm going to forgive him.
But Carlos would carry that anger for many years before he would fully come to terms with his loss of innocence. Carlos's mother was determined to improve her children's life. In 1962, the Santana family were on the move again, this time following their father across the border to San Francisco.
My mother wanted a better life for all of us. She thought she could best do that by bringing us here to the United States. She was old school in her upbringing, discipline, education, work. And so her plan must have been to get us to San Francisco.
They call it Stormy Monday.
As a Mexican immigrant, 15-year-old Carlos had to adjust to a new language in a new environment and to the emotional turmoil of adolescence. He took the advice of his old teacher to change his sound.
When I came specifically to this house of music where Javier used to tell me about, because they sell guitars in there, so watching these guitars, Epiphones and Gibson and Fenders, to me that was like what kids do with Playboy magazine. You know, I was like, I wonder what she smells like, I wonder what she feels like, I wonder what she sounds like, you know. And I was watching these guitars when I heard these sailors looked at me and they screamed at me, hey, you fucking Pancho Villa chili beanie motherfucker. And I was like, I turned around like, I'm just a kid, I'm sure they're not talking to me. Finally I turned around and they were screaming at me. And that's why I was angry, because I started feeling the sting of racism, the sting of ignorance directed straight at me. So there was a variety of things that were making me feel really, really angry with life and with people. And it was all directed at not being able to fix it.
By the mid-60s, Santana's adopted hometown had become the focus of an alternative culture with a psychedelic sound to match.